Hello everyone. Today is third session on the chapter Surface Chemistry. Last class we had learnt about homogeneous catalysis and heterogeneous catalysis. Today we learn about enzyme catalysis and also the new concept colloids and types of colloids. So let's look into what is enzyme catalysis. What do you mean by enzyme? Enzymes are called as biochemical catalyst. It is a nitrogenous macromolecule produced by a living organism to catalyze the physiological reactions which is happening within them. That means the chemical reactions which are happening inside a living organism is catalyzed by enzymes and thus they are called as biochemical catalyst. For example, digestion is happening with the help of the enzymes like pepsin, trypsin, chymotrypsin, etc. Thus, they are called as biochemical catalyst. These are the examples for enzymes. First reaction, we have sucrose C12H22O11 which is getting converted to glucose and fructose. Okay, and this reaction is catalyzed by invertase enzyme. Invertase is an enzyme which is produced by yeast. Also, glucose gets converted to alcohol again in the presence of enzyme zymase. These reactions you will also come across in the chapter alcohols where you are converting sucrose to alcohol. These are the two enzymes which is produced by yeast. Similarly, we have many enzymes which I can give as example. Maltose to get converted into glucose, maltase enzyme is used. Urea to get converted into ammonia and carbon dioxide, urease enzyme is used, etc. So, you have to remember one or two examples for your exams. Now, let's see the characteristics of enzyme catalysis. Enzymes are highly efficient. That means small amount of enzyme can increase the speed of the reaction million times. That means we require very small amount of the enzyme for increasing the speed of a reaction. So, they are highly efficient. Next, they are highly specific. That means one particular enzyme can catalyze only one kind of a reaction. For example, maltase can be used to convert maltose to glucose. Next is they are highly active under optimum temperature and optimum pH. What do you mean by optimum temperature and optimum pH? It's a range of temperature, okay, at which the efficiency of the catalyst is highest. That is, the enzyme efficiency is highest at a particular range of temperature which we call as optimum temperature. For example, inside our body, all the enzymes have an optimum temperature, that is our normal body temperature of 310 Kelvin. Okay. What do you mean by optimum pH? Optimum pH is again a range of pH where the enzyme is highly efficient. Usually it is between 5 and 7 pH. Next is in the presence of activators or coenzyme, they are highly efficient, or the presence of activators increases the efficiency of an enzyme. For this I can give an example of amylase. Amylase enzyme efficiency increases in the presence of sodium ion. So, sodium ion becomes an activator. Usually, activators are metal ions which are there. Coenzymes means it is a non-protein part. It's a non-protein part of an enzyme. All enzymes are proteins. In that enzyme, if there is a non-protein part, then that part is called as a coenzyme. Okay. The last one is In the presence of inhibitors or poisons, or inhibitors and poisons, the efficiency of the catalyst reduces. Such substances are, for example, cyanide ion, okay, or it can be arsenic, or many such examples are there. Or usually the drugs which we take, like antibacterial drugs or antibiotics which we take, some of the antibiotics are targeting the enzymes of the bacteria, that is, they are inhibiting the enzymes of the bacteria so that they will not grow and the infection will reduce. Okay, so inhibitors and poisons are those which reduces the efficiency of enzymes. So these are the main characteristics of enzyme. What are those? They are highly efficient, they are very specific, they have an optimum temperature and pH in which they are highly efficient. Okay, then they are influenced by the presence of inhibitors or poisons, or in the presence of activators. Activators are also called as promoters. Okay, activators or promoters, the efficiency of enzyme increases. So these are the main characteristics of enzymes. Next we will see about the mechanism of enzyme catalysis. I can explain this by using lock and key model. That is, for every lock there is a particular key to open it. Similarly, for every reactant there is a specific enzyme if which we use, it will get converted into a product. In the substrate, reactants are also called as substrate. The substrate has cavities in which the enzyme will go and get attached themselves, and they will form a complex that is called as enzyme substrate complex. In this complex, the enzyme and substrate interact and the substrate gets converted into the product. So basically there are two steps. First step, enzyme plus substrate forms a enzyme substrate complex. Okay, and then the enzyme substrate complex decompose to give back the enzyme and the substrate is converted into the products. Okay, and in the cavities as well as on the enzyme molecules there are something called as active sites. Okay, the active sites can have NH2 groups, COH groups or OH groups on the enzyme molecule. Okay, to understand this better, we will see this. The substrate comes into the enzyme, it will form the complex, get converted into the product, moves away, diffuses away so that the new substrate can come in. Okay. Next we are learning a new concept called as colloids. Here I shall take an example. If I take a cup of water and take a spoonful of sugar and dissolve it, you can see it becomes a homogeneous mixture. You cannot see the sugar particles which is there in water. It looks uniform, but the particles are there dispersed in the water. That is, the sugar particles is dissolved in water. Such homogeneous mixtures are called as true solutions. Okay, they are homogeneous mixtures in which the particle size is less than 1 nanometer. That's the reason you cannot see that. The particle size is really very small. Whereas if I take sand and mix it with water, what happens? After some time you can see sand particles have settled down and the water is above. What happens? The two phases have been created there. You can clearly see the sand particles, and such mixtures or such system is called as a suspension, in which the particle size is greater than 1000 nanometer. Now, if the particle size is between 1 nanometer and 1000 nanometer, then we get a new type of system or a heterogeneous mixture called as colloid. Colloid is a heterogeneous mixture. It is not homogeneous mixture. It is a heterogeneous mixture in which the particle size varies between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. It is having a particle size intermediate between true solutions and suspensions. Example for colloids, if I have to tell, so many colloids which you can see around here. Milk is a colloid, gel, emulsion, smoke, okay, ruby crystal, cloud, fog, all these are colloids, okay. So we learn in detail about colloids. Before that, we will see the differences here, okay, or compare the properties. True solutions are homogeneous. Sol, colloids are also called as sol, okay, they are heterogeneous. Suspension is also heterogeneous. The size of the solute particle is less than 1 nanometer. Here it is between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Here it is greater than 1000 nanometer. Next, true solution and of colloids, the particles can pass or it can go through the filter paper, but in suspension they cannot go through the filter paper. Next one is, they are very stable, true solution. These are stable, but you can separate the colloidal particles, okay, or it will settle down, okay, when centrifugation process can happen, okay. Here it is highly unstable, settle down on its own, just like sand and water, what example I gave. Here solution, milk, fog, muddy water, smoke in air. When smoke and air are mixed, then we can call them as suspension as well. So next one is detail about colloids. Now what do you mean by colloids? I told you it is a heterogeneous mixture in which the particle size is between 1 nanometer and 1000 nanometer. It is made up of two separate phases, that is dispersion medium and dispersed phase. Okay, here you can see the medium in which the particles are dispersed, a continuous medium is called as a dispersion medium, and the particles which are discontinuously scattered in the dispersion medium, then we call it as dispersed phase. What is it? Dispersion medium in which colloidal particles are dispersed, we call it as dispersion medium. The substance which is dispersed in the colloidal solution or dispersion medium, we call it as dispersed phase. There are three types of classification, okay, of colloids. First one, based on physical state of dispersion medium and dispersed phase, okay. Second, based on interaction between the dispersed phase and the dispersion medium. See, interaction between the dispersion medium and the dispersed phase. Next, type of dispersed phase particle. So there are three types of classification. One is based on type of dispersion medium and dispersed phase. Which type of dispersion medium and dispersed phase is there? Based on that. Second is the interaction between them. Based on that, there is one classification. And third classification is based on type of dispersed phase particles. So let's see the first type of classification. Based on physical state of dispersed phase and dispersed medium, okay, we have so many types of colloids. Here dispersed phase is a solid and medium is also a solid. Dispersed phase and dispersed medium both are solid. The type of colloid formed is called as solid sol, okay. The colloid formed is called as solid sol. Example, you can give gems or any ruby, jade, etc. They are colored glasses or stones or gems which are there, in which dispersed phase also is a solid, dispersion medium is also solid, okay. Second one is dispersed phase is a solid, dispersion medium is a liquid. Medium is a liquid, the particles which are there is a solid. Such colloid is called as a sol. Example, paint we can give, okay. Next, when a solid is dispersed in gas, that is if the solid is a dispersion phase and the gas is dispersion medium, then we call it as aerosol, okay, we call it as aerosol. Example, smoke, dust, etc. okay. Next is, we are coming to liquid. When liquid is dispersed in solid, liquid particles is dispersed in solid, it will form gel. It's very important question. What is gel is been asked many times in the previous paper. Gel is a colloid in which the dispersed phase is a liquid and the dispersion medium is a solid. Example, cheese, butter, jellies, etc. Okay. The next one, in which both the dispersion medium and dispersed phase both are liquids, then we call them as emulsion. This also is an important question which has been asked previously. Okay, example, milk, hair cream, serum, etc. When liquid is dispersed in a gas, it is again called as aerosol. Okay, fog, mist, cloud, insecticide spray, etc. are the examples for an aerosol. Next is when gas is dispersed in a solid, it is called as solid sol. Okay, example we have pumic stone or foam rubber, etc. When gas is dispersed in a liquid, we call it as a foam. Whipped cream, soap lather, froth, etc. are examples of gas in a liquid. So it's very important to remember the names and what is the dispersed phase and the dispersion medium. I hope you have understood this type of classification. So we'll go to the second type of classification. Second is based on the interaction between the dispersed phase and the dispersed medium. Okay, we have two types, lyophilic and lyophobic. Okay, the first one, lyophilic colloid. What do you mean by lyo? Lyo means solvent. Okay, philic means loving. So these are those colloids in which the dispersed phase has a affinity towards the dispersion medium. They like to go or they like to be with one another. They are very easy to form. The preparation of lyophilic colloids are very easy and they are very stable, and you can also reverse the process here of preparation. Okay. They do not undergo coagulation very easily. What do you mean by coagulation? I can give you a simple example which you see. Curdling of milk. If milk is there, if you just add 2 or 3 drops of lemon juice or vinegar, after some time you can see the whey and the casein becomes separated. You can see some solid particles below and a thin translucent liquid which is there. Correct? They form two different phases. That process is called as coagulation. Okay. Lyophilic colloids do not undergo coagulation very easily. Now, what do you mean by lyophobic colloids? Phobia means they hate. Okay. Here, the dispersed phase and the dispersion medium do not like each other, or there is no affinity between the dispersed phase and the dispersion medium is very less. Then we call it as lyophobic colloids. Okay. Here they have a particular method of preparation. They need stabilizers to make it very stable. If they are not very stable, they can undergo coagulation with addition of very small amount of electrolyte. Easily they will undergo coagulation. So these are the two types of colloids based on interaction between the dispersed phase and the dispersion medium. Let's look into the differences here. This is a very important question for your board exams. Okay, write the difference between lyophilic and lyophobic colloids. So the first one, dispersed phase has an high affinity for dispersion medium in lyophilic colloids. Dispersed phase has low affinity. Here the affinity is high for phobic, low affinity between dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Second one, they are easily formed by direct mixing or on heating. They are easily formed, easy methods of preparation. Here they cannot be prepared directly. They have special methods of preparation. For lyophobic, you have special methods of preparation which going further you will be learning. Next, they are very reversible. Here it is irreversible. Reversible, for this I can give an example of starch. powdered starch and mix it with little warm water, okay, they will easily form a colloid. You will get a colloidal starch solution you will get. To separate that, to reverse, can you get back the starch powder? Yes, you can get. You just have to evaporate the water. The remaining powder will be there. That is your dispersion medium and the dispersed phase you have separated. You have reversed the process of preparation of starch solution or colloidal starch. Okay, that's why lyophilic they are reversible, lyophobic it is irreversible. It is not this easy to reverse. You cannot reverse once the colloids are formed. Next, they are quite stable, cannot be easily coagulated. Here it is unstable and it can be easily coagulated. It can be easily coagulated. They do not need stabilizing agent. Stabilizing agents are not needed because they are already very stable. But here they need stabilizing agents. More about the coagulation and about stabilizing agent you will be learning in the further classes. Okay. So the next one is the third type of classification based on the type of particle of the dispersed phase. In that first one, okay, we have multimolecular colloids. What do you mean by multimolecular? For example, in gold sol what happens is many gold atoms will be present in the dispersion medium, okay. These gold atoms come together, okay, they coagulate together and they will form a particle of a colloidal size. The true solution particles are below 1 nanometer. Now these many particles when they coagulate or aggregate together, they will get the size of the colloidal particle size, that is above 1 nanometer, between 1 nanometer and 1000 nanometer, and now they will form a colloidal particle. So many atoms aggregate together to come to the size of the colloidal particle, okay. Such colloids are called as multimolecular. Many molecules together aggregate will come to the colloidal particle size. So the large number of atoms or smaller molecules of a substance aggregate together to form a species having a size of colloidal range. Then we call it as multimolecular colloids. Example we can give gold sol. You can see here how particles are, there present. Now they started aggregating. Now they become bigger size. Now they have a size of the colloidal particle. So many particles aggregate together to come to the colloidal particle size. Such colloids are called as multimolecular colloids. So the next one is macromolecular colloids. Here the particle size itself is bigger. They are already having a particle size above 1 nanometer. Macromolecule, the molecule itself is having the particle size of a colloid. Okay, the substance having molecules of large size when dispersed in a medium to form macromolecule colloidal range. Okay, example protein, starch, cellulose are all macromolecular colloids. The particle size is already in the colloidal range when we are dispersing them into the dispersion medium. Okay. Next one we have associated colloids or micelles. Okay. In this type of a colloid at low concentrations, associated colloids at low concentration will behave like an electrolyte, normal strong electrolyte. Normal strong electrolyte means you are taking salt and dissolving in water, that is normal strong electrolytic solution. Okay. So at lower concentration they just behave like electrolytes. As you increase the concentration, at a particular concentration they will suddenly get converted into a micelle and come to the colloidal range. Okay. So at a higher concentration exhibit colloidal behavior due to formation of aggregates called as micelles. So at low concentration they will act like a strong electrolyte. At a higher concentration particles aggregate called as micelles and have colloidal behavior. Such colloids are called as associated colloids. Now, this micelle is formed at a particular temperature or above a particular temperature. That temperature is called as Kraft temperature. They are formed only above a certain temperature. Micelles need a certain temperature to be formed. So, above the temperature is called as Kraft temperature. CMC, what is CMC? Critical micelle concentration. Micelles are formed above a particular concentration. That concentration is called as CMC of a micelle. I told you low concentration, strong electrolyte. At a particular concentration, above that they will behave like micelles or a colloid. So that concentration above which they will behave like a colloid, that concentration is called as critical micelle concentration. Okay, CMC. So again, these two are important 1 mark questions. Okay. Next, we will see, for understanding the associated colloid better, we can take an example of soap. Okay. Mechanism of micelle formation. Soap, what do you mean by soap? Soap is sodium or potassium salt of high fatty acids. They are represented as RCOO minus Na plus. RCOO minus Na plus. Okay. For example, sodium stearate, where it is C17H35COONA. Here you can see I have given an example, sodium stearate. In this soap particle, they have two parts. The tail, okay, the stearate ion, the tail, what you can see here, okay, this long hydrocarbon chain, we call it as a tail. That is hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means they don't like water. Phobic, hating, okay, hydro, water. They do not like water, okay. Hydrophilic head means they have a liking or affinity towards water. So the head, the carboxylate is hydrophilic head, we call it as, and the long hydrocarbon chain is hydrophobic tail, okay, in any soap particle. Okay. Now here we do not show this, we just show like this for the tail and one head, that is head is hydrophilic, tail is hydrophobic. Now when soap is dissolved or it is put into water, at a very small amount of soap if you put, what will happen? The head will be inside the water and the tail will be above the water, because the tail does not like, the stearate ion or the tail is hydrophobic, they do not have affinity to water, they do not like water. So they are staying away from it, it is above water. Only the head is there, you can see it is there forming a layer. Okay, one layer is formed in which only the head is fixed, which is there into the water, and the tail is above the water. Now if I put more and more amount of soap, okay, or more and more amount of detergent if I have put, what will happen? There is no more surface area is not available for all the soap particles to remain in this condition. Suddenly they will aggregate or they will form like a ball in which all the tails will come in between and the surface is covered by the CO minus group. Okay, the tail will enter in the center and the head will be there covering outside. So the head will protect the tails by coming in contact with water. So the tails will not come into contact with water in the presence of a layer of heads which is there or which it is protected by. So this is how a micelle is formed. To understand better, you can see here how the particles will come, all the heads will be there outside, tails will form a micelle in which tails are there inside and the heads are above. You can see here the tails are there in the center and the heads are all forming a outermost layer. So this is about the micelle formation. I hope you have understood about the micelle formation. Okay. Next is cleaning action of soap. Now for example, there is some oil or grease on the cloth. Now this hydrophobic tail, what is there, they do not like water, but the dirt particle is not the water. For example, oil or grease is there on the cloth. The tail will go and get it when you put detergent to that okay, detergent or soap to it, the tail part will hide inside the dirt and the head is there outside, which likes the water or has affinity to water. The tail does not like water, so it wants to hide, it will go and hide inside or get themselves attached inside the dirt. Now when you scrub it out, okay, when the tails go, they will take the dirt along with them and move out, and that's how the clothes are getting cleaned up. Okay, when there is dirt, the hydrophobic tail will get attached themselves on the dirt, the head will be there above. When you just give a small scrub, the tail will take the dirt along with that, so that they are not getting exposed to water and forms a micelle. So they take out the dirt and will go out. So this is how the soap does its cleaning work or cleansing action of soap. I hope you have understood today's class. Next class we learn about methods of preparation of colloids and purification of colloids. See you. Thank you. Stay focused. Stay tuned.